Cool, cool, cool. I am. All right, I'm setting it up on my Facebook as well.
All right, I think we're live now, so I'll go ahead and share on mine and then get started in a second as soon as I share it. All right, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Sped this out a little bit more.
All right, Natural Week community, welcome to this week's Natural Community Hour of Power. We are very excited for this week's guest, who I will introduce in a couple minutes. But first, we're going to just get started with a brief guided meditation exercise that I will lead. Today, we have as our background the African Journey and Healing Drum music that is actually found on YouTube. And so you can just get comfortable in your seat, in your chair, on your bed. You just want to find a position that you are able to feel very comfortable in. And so I invite you to just take a deep breath out and a deep breath in and a deep breath out and a deep breath in. And just continue with that breathing pattern as you are listening to me. And today I'm going to read something that I wrote a couple days ago. Thinking about Black men, thinking about experiences, things of that nature. Just continue to breathe. And so, dear Black man, you are fully equipped and capable of achieving all your passions, goals, and dreams. You, Black man, have a divine purpose. Your experiences do not define you. Black man, handsome Black man, strong Black man. Your heart is healed. Your mind is healed. Your body is healed. Your spirit is healed. Dear Black man, you got this. Arise to your full, authentic self, to the essence of your being. Black man, you are more than well. And as you continue to breathe, Black men, you are more than well. And Black women, you are more than well. Black children, you are more than well. And we just invite you to just sit and bask in that and to hold that. So many times we struggle with negative thoughts, and one of the ways that we deal with that is to speak life into ourselves and to encourage ourselves. And so just know that you are great, you are powerful, you are loving, you are kind, you are everything that you need to be to navigate this earth. And as you breathe out, you're breathing out anything that is negative or harmful to you. And as you breathe in, you're breathing in all the life and positivity that is useful for you and that life has to offer. And so just take a couple more breaths. If you have closed your eyes, this is now the time to go ahead and open them as we get ready for a great conversation. I am going to briefly read the bio of our guest before he introduces himself in his own way. For those of you who are joining, welcome, welcome. Please feel free to write comments and participate in the discussion in our chat box for the Zoom and the Facebook Live. And so today, I am very, very excited. We have a wonderful, wonderful person by the name of Terry Josiah Sharpe. He is a father, combat veteran, inventor, and manager of the only free full-time audio production studio in America. Terry Josiah is the epitome of a true creative in today's society. Whether voiceover, music production, or songwriting, he has been a pillar of audio excellence over the last decade. And he truly is a pillar of audio excellence. I've had the pleasure of hearing his voice and sing and for some time now. And so I'm not going to try and count the years at the moment. But we are just grateful. And Terry Josiah, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, thank you, TJ. I appreciate it. Again, as TJ said, I am Terry Josiah. I am a creative. I'm a music executive of Anthem Music Enterprises, and we sell, it's going to sound weird, right? But we sell vocals. So we work with some of the best vocalists in the whole Front Range, the entire Front Range. And we turn around and we sell those vocals to like different producers and people that need to enhance their production or take their production to the next level. I just get to be the executive of this incredible company that is doing some incredible things with audio production. And funny thing is, though, that is outside of this space that I currently am in, which is the only free full-time audio production studio in America right now. However, we're not full-time right now just because of the whole COVID-19 pandemic that has just destroyed the, the day-to-day interactions of people. So right now my studio is empty. I don't have anybody in here. My studio is actually, this studio is located inside of a library. So Pikes Peak Library District in Colorado Springs. So if there is anybody watching that is in Colorado or is looking to find a place where they can record free production, this is the place, Studio 916 inside Sand Creek Library of Pikes Peak Library District. And yeah, we're actually closing right now, which is awesome. We actually just reopened yesterday. So we're dealing with the community coming back in, and we're still limiting it to like 25 people, at a time, just because of social distancing. And again, we're trying to get used to all of these new norms. Yeah, so right now, part of what I'm doing outside of music, because even though music is kind of like my day-to-day, I think that the beauty of what I do in working inside this studio is that I get to make sure that people's voices are heard. And for me, that's like just a real big part of my, I don't want to say my passion, but just a part of my movement. And I really enjoy being able to make sure that people's voices are heard. So, and it's not just mine, but even my wife. Crazy thing is, I just got married in February 2nd, 2020. Your boy just got married. And we got married on.
And we're excited and happy for you.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. We got married on the island of Kauai. My wife also works in making sure that people's voices are heard. And so she works in the realm of domestic violence and domestic violence awareness and domestic violence advocacy. And I do a lot of work in that aspect as well. But once we started seeing kind of like, I mean, the COVID thing happened, and that was just a really big pivot for everybody. Didn't matter who you were, where you were. When COVID happened, it shifted the landscape of how all of us move. And I mean, a lot of people were just stuck at home, and stay-at-home orders got put into place. And so there's all of these things that kind of pushed us to where we are right now. But I'm saying all of that to say that the premise, the foundation of our work is already rooted in making sure that people's voices are heard. And so I say that to say that, all right, so now, you know, coronavirus happened. Then we had the murder of Ahmaud Arbery, which was showcased, and then we had the murder of George Floyd, which was showcased, and during this time, um, so this is how I see things. We have COVID and we have these stay-at-home orders, and there's a lot of people that are like, nah, we don't need to stay at home. We got our rights and we need to be free. So they protest against the stay-at-home orders, and their protest just looks a little bit different because they're like fully armed and they got their guns and their magazines and their body armor and all this stuff. And then they march to their capital, and they make it inside their capital. And I was like, heck yeah. All right, Corona is going to stop people from not going inside the Capitol. People are actually allowed to make it inside the Capitol, sit down, have conversations, so that they can share their voice, share their stories and why they feel they don't need to be stuck at home anymore, right? And so we see it. We see them in full body armor. They take the pictures marching. They're taking pictures inside the Capitol. They're smiling with the people inside there, and everything looks great and dandy. And I'm like, all right, awesome. This is great. Then the death of Ahmaud Arbery happens. The murder of George Floyd happens, and then it's like, okay, cool. Hey, people, right now they're allowing people to go inside the Capitol. So let's rally. Let's tell them that we need to ban, you know, the use of chokeholds, use of knee holds. Like, we shouldn't allow those to be acceptable practices anymore. So let's go, let's march, let's make it inside the Capitol. Let's have these conversations because they're listening right now. We just saw them 2 weeks ago. They listened to these groups of people say that they didn't want to stay at home anymore, and they allowed them to go inside the Capitol. So for me, like, this is my personal feelings about marches, right? If we're marching, like, me personally, I'm not going to go on a march to hold a sign just to, at the end of the march, I walk home now, like I march home. Like, that's, for me, that's counterproductive. So like my march, what I envision is, if I'm marching and I got signs and I'm trying to raise awareness on something, the end goal is that I'm marching, and then at the end of my march, there's somebody that is in a position of power that's going to hear what I have to say, so that we can make changes for the problems that are continually happening in our communities. Okay, so that's how I see it, right? So at the end of the march, we're going to have this conversation. Thing that sucks is that our particular group of people just weren't able to make it inside the Capitol. We were met with tear gas and riot gear and rubber bullets and things that blocked us from making it inside the Capitol. And when you have people fighting for freedom, you know, for their right to get their haircuts, for their right to get pedicures and manicures and the luxuries of being an American, and they're welcomed with open arms, and they're armed, fully armed, and then you have people fighting for, you know, just human decency. Like, yo, we just want to let y'all know, stop killing us.
Right.
Like, can we just have that conversation? Can we have a conversation where we discuss acceptable holds? Like, we shouldn't have choke holds, we shouldn't have knee holds, we should ban some of those things that are causing harm. We want to have those conversations, and so when we have one group of people that's fighting for their freedoms to get certain things, and then we have one group of people fighting for freedoms to live, it's like a little bit different. But then, like, one group, the one that's fighting for the right to live versus fighting for the right to look nice and be presentable, both groups are met differently. And it was really hard to see that. It was really hard to recognize that, dang, they're just not listening to us. Like, they're just not allowing our voices to be heard on this particular subject. They say, hey, we're putting in stay-at-home orders, but we'll listen to you talk and gripe about how you should be able to get your haircuts, how you should be able to have baseball tournaments outside, how you should be able to do all of these things without a face mask. Like, and then we got another group of people just saying, hey, we just want to live. Can we live? Can we have room You know, can we have this structure built so that there's room for us to live, and they're just not even accepted inside the building, and we're not armed, we're not in full battle rattle, we don't have AR-15s, we don't have full rounds of ammunition strapped like we're Rambo going inside the Capitol. And I'm like, well, maybe we should have, and they would have let us in because that's what the last group did. And again, it was really hard to see. And so because of that, now it's like, all right, what can we do? Now, if they're stopping us from having these conversations with these key leaders, these, you know, just like the last group did, what can we do? And so literally for the last, I don't know, 3 weeks now, I think, 3.5 weeks, we've had conversations like this, where it's just the community. And the thing is, like, if the people that are in charge aren't caring, what happens is that lack of care trickles down. And because it trickles down, now the human to human interaction between you and I is almost destroyed before it ever even happens. I can't even have this conversation with you because before I have that conversation with you, you've already been instilled with the mentality of you don't care. It doesn't matter. Your voice doesn't matter to me. And so for me, it's been about breaking that. And how can I break that just in my own community? If I can't break that in religious spectrums, if I can't break it in political spectrums, if I can't break it in all of these realms that still like to divide people, it's really weird. People are like, oh no, we're all about unity. America is the land of the free, home of the brave, and we're a melting pot. But like there's so many aspects of America that just create division, right? So you have the rich and the poor, you have Catholics and Christians and Baptists and all the religious groups that act like and Buddhists and Muslims, and like one religious group is better than another one. And it's like, well, is it really? Because the golden rule of all religions is still doing to others as you would have done unto you. So are we really that different? Is there really so much difference between a Buddhist and a Catholic, or a Christian and a Muslim? And so I say all of that to say, in politics, right? There's just all of these things in our American structure, in our American society, that kind of segregates us. And it's just really...
I'm going to sit with that for a couple of minutes, because you also, as you're talking, you also see this as a veteran, right? You are someone who did 2 tours in Afghanistan, if I remember correctly.
Iraq. And
you are part of this line, this lineage, these generations of Black men who fought in the American Revolution, who fought on both sides, in the Civil War. And with those 2 wars in particular, it was to be free. It wasn't even necessarily about the foundations of this country, but which side is going to make sure that I'm not enslaved anymore, right? And then you keep going down all these wars, right, to, you know, World War I, to World War II. You know, you have the Gulf War, you got the Vietnam War, and each time you have veterans who have black men who have fought in these wars for freedom and democracy and liberation and all of these things. And then they come back onto American soil, who they fought for, and they're lynched. Or they see someone who looks like them being you know, shot, or have their knee on their neck. So how do you reconcile that as a Black man, as a veteran who has fought for this country, who is now using using music, using the songwriting to really, and then to actually create change and be a change agent? I'd say, like, how do you wrestle with that?
Yeah, it's definitely difficult. And the thing that sucks is, like, even in the military, like, I dealt with a lot of racism, you know, and it was just like, well, you got to deal with it. You know, like there's no calling out, there's no cancel culture in the military. You know what I mean? Like you can't say, oh, this person's a racist in the military, and then that person's military career is over with. Like, at least back then, we didn't have social media when I was in the military. This is 2001. Gosh, that's so long ago.
Is that when you really left?
Yeah. Yeah,
Wow,
here's the crazy
okay.
thing. Here's the crazy thing. So I'll give just a little bit of the military backstory. So I was this young California kid who thought I could do any and everything in the world, right? So I'm 17 years old. I graduate high school at 17. I thought I was just, a superstar. And I remember there was this business for young Black men out of New York City or New York. I don't remember the city. It might have been NYC, but for Black men, they created this fashion line. The fashion line was for us, by us. And for short, it was FUBU. And FUBU was the hottest ticketed clothing item on the market back then. So in my young amateur mind, I'm just like, well, if 4 dudes from New York can do it, then surely one California guy can do it. That was my mindset, right? So for my senior year, like I kind of started thinking about like fashion. And so there was a school called FITM, Fashion Institute Design and Merchandising. There was one based in Vegas. I had talked to my grandparents about it. They were moving to Vegas, or they had already moved there, or they had a house there or something. And we had talked about me being able to stay there, go to that school and all that stuff, right? So everything was cool. I thought that was going to be my plan. Meantime, I'm still in school, I'm still a senior or whatever. And they have this really cool, like young military recruiter that's there. And like, I would take advantage, you know what I mean? He goes to the schools and he's always like, hey, who wants to do this? Who wants to do that? And I would try and do everything because my parents just didn't really have the money to do the things that I wanted to do. And this guy sponsored everything. So I'm going to batting cages, I'm going to arcade games, I'm doing everything that I can, and he's riding me around in his BMW, talking about the lavish life of the military. And like, I kind of thought about it even then, but I also was just like, nah, that's not really my lane. Like I'm about to create the next FUBU, And so then my plan was I was going to enroll in January. So I took the first semester off, enroll in January, and do my application and all of that stuff. And I was a little lazy and maybe a little slow. And of course, I took the summer off, and then September was like my time to start moving. Okay. So in the direction of going to FITM. So September 8th, I turned 18 years old. So I could do essentially anything I wanted now without having to get a parental signature or anything like that. And then 3 days later, past September 8th, 9/10, September 11th. And on my, right after my 18th birthday, September 11th happened. And I literally, I can still remember it like yesterday, how it all happened and how it unfolded. And I walked my mom out to say goodbye that particular morning. I don't usually walk her out. And then I went to sleep on the couch, and she either came back in or called me and was just like, turn on the TV. And I turned it on, and it was.
She called you.
Yeah. And
so I was actually at your house that day, and it was so bizarre. It was
crazy,
just,
right?
Yeah, and the look on your face, it was so, me and your brothers, right, my crew, we were actually in the kitchen, we're singing, we're making breakfast.
Yeah.
And, we're also being yelled at to hurry up and get ready for school. But we saw your face first. Like we heard, you heard your mom get quiet, but we saw your face first. And it's just like, because she called you back in the way she yelled your name. Like, it wasn't like you were in trouble. It wasn't like she wanted to tell you something. We were just like,
it was like an emergency.
Yeah, we were like, and we all looked because, we hadn't hit anybody that day. So we knew that nobody was like bleeding.
Yeah. Right.
And it was I'm sorry, I just have to say it, because your face, it was like, you didn't know everything that was going on in that moment, just like we didn't know everything, but the way your face was, it was like you were going to do something about it.
Yeah, this is what I remember. It's so crazy because I don't remember anybody around me. I remember sitting on the couch. My mom called. I answered. She said, "Turn the TV on." I turned it on. I saw what happened, and my immediate thought was like, somebody is really trying to attack our freedom. And as a young American kid, I didn't think that it was right for that to happen, and that it was on my shoulders, but like I needed to do something. And so I was literally compelled to like, okay, what can I do right now? And literally that day, I called the recruiter because I had his contact, and I had gone to batting cages and done, maybe 2 or 3 things with him over that year. And I was like, yo, like, what's good? You know what I mean? And he was like, I feel like he felt like I was all the way in. And then when that happened, he was just like, oh, so are you like out? You know what I mean? But like for me, it was the exact opposite. I was out the whole time. But like when that happened, I was like, nah, this is what I need to do. And so when I called him and told him that, he was like, dang, okay, cool, let's go. And literally on the 12th, we started all the processes for everything. On the 13th, I had a going away party. I would have left on the 13th, which is crazy. The only reason why I didn't leave on the 13th is because all of the flights were delayed. And so my initial plan was leaving immediately. And so the 13th was the day that I was supposed to leave. But we need all the flights got like delayed and grounded and all this stuff. So they needed to get all those people out of there. So I had a 4-day wait or a 3-day wait. And so I left on the 16th. On the 17th was my first day of basic training. Like that's how
Yeah,
crazy that whole like situation kind of unraveled for me.
right.
And I'm this young kid in California, and I know, especially being in California, like that there are racial biases and all of those things. Like, yeah, California might be more of a melting pot than other places in the United States, but like the implicit bias is still there. It's still everywhere, just because that's how this system was set up. You know, gerrymandering wasn't just in California. All of these. I know this guy.
I was about to ask, is this one of yours? So welcome, who just joined on Zoom. If you can just mute yourself. And actually, Terry, Josiah, you actually have a few people that you know. So Jana and Paul both said that they love you and that they are listening.
Very nice.
Pastor Jack.
I love you all too.
Pastor Jack said that she is. You know Pastor Jack.
You said Pastor
You
Jack.
know my mama.
El Mother.
Yes.
Yeah.
She is listening as well. So you have quite a few people that you know who are listening to this very, very important conversation. And I think part of this is, we've known each other for a while, y'all, naturally. But as you're bringing up so many memories because, when you broke the news that you were leaving and how everything just happened so quickly, it's just, and as you talk about, San Diego, California, it's not the South, but at the same time, when we were growing up, you clearly told us all the time, I better not catch y'all in Clan T,
because we knew. That's the thing. We knew.
Right.
We understood. I understood racism as a young kid. I remember getting called a nigger when I was like, had to have been like 6 or 7, maybe 8, but like literally early on. And the crazy thing was, it was a little white kid, and he said it, and my sister Sasha whooped his ass. Like when, and I'm talking like one of those big like plastic bats, and just came out there as soon as I said it. And I didn't really understand the word or the negative connotations that came with the word. But Sasha understood it, which was funny because she's still only like not even a whole year older than me. But she
Right.
understand it in full. So she ran, grabbed the bat and started whooping that kid's ass. And then his dad came out, who was a white guy. And he's like yelling at her as why she's whooping his son with a bat. Like, why are you beating my son with the bat? And then she says, he called my brother a nigger. And that dude grabbed his son up so hard and started yelling at him, don't you ever use that word. And it was just like, I mean, it was crazy for me to see at such a young age. But even at that young age, I recognize that there is a way to segregate people by their color and to treat them bad. And I recognize that. And again, just being in San Diego, like, it's there. It's not that, you know, maybe it's more prominent in the South, or maybe because the South is the epicenter of the civil rights movement type of thing, that it's really there, and people migrated to California, so maybe it's not so much there. But like, racism is rooted everywhere. And the thing that sucks is that we don't know whose home is a racist home. There's no neon lights, you know what I mean, flashing a swastika or flashing racist, you know, above their house, or above their front door. So we don't know who's who and who's doing what. But what I do know is that with all of this, there has to be change. Like that's been the biggest thing, right? Is everybody's like, something needs to change. And it's beautiful because whether our leadership up at the top, right, from the highest levels down to the highest office, all the way down to the local offices, right? So if our leadership just is not doing it and not recognizing that certain changes need to be made, then this is how we create change, is by human to human interaction. And that's what I've been harping on that so much, because like one of my friends out here in Colorado, he's a white guy and he's a security guy. And so he's applying for the sheriff's office. So he texts me and he's just like, hey, can I use you as a reference and all this stuff? And they got to do a background check on me and you know, the whole 9 yards, right? So they'll call me and all these things. And I'm like, yeah, but like, you're a white dude, so I just need you to promise me, you know what I mean, as my friend, like you're gonna do what's right. You know what I mean? Like you're just gonna do what's right. You can't feel threatened because of somebody's skin color. Like, you just got to do what's right. And he's just like, look, man, I know, like that's why I want to join, is so that I can help from the inside. And I'm like, all right, perfect. Then like I started thinking about it, and the thing that sucks is that we're in such a place of society that it does not matter what interaction he has with a Black person. If he has an interaction with a Black person and he's wearing a uniform, you know, whether a sheriff or police officer, like people, and let's say the Black, and let's just, you know, be fair, right? Let's say he got called to a situation, the person is maybe doing some criminal activity, and just for, and I'm not trying to follow stereotypes, right? But just for conversation, it happens to be a Black guy, he happens to be a white officer. If they have an interaction, any interaction that they have, that even if it's the slightest bit negative, people are going to deem this dude a racist. You know what I mean? And like, that's where my problem is that a lot of interactions now, people are just deeming racist interactions. And it's like, can we get away from Black versus white? And can we just stick to, it's a human to human interaction. And if somebody does something that's wrong in that interaction, then we correct that. Like, that's kind of the bottom line. Yes, there is a problem with systemic racism and systemic oppression. I understand that, like, wholeheartedly, you know, and I understand the full history of how it turned into where we're at now, and how some of these cop killings are deemed acceptable, right? Because this system is 100% in place. We cannot deny that system. However, not everybody is a part of that system, or not everybody is a part of these particular roles within that system. And anytime we see a one-on-one type of situation, a human-to-human interaction, if it's Black and white, if it's Black and Asian, if it's white and Mexican, like, it's like, oh, these are racist interactions. And now, like, well, I don't know. It's just like
you're getting to you're hitting on an important part, right? So first, racism is everywhere, right? It's a matter of, is it overt or covert? Is it right there in your face, or is it actually behind your back and then all of a sudden you're surprised, right?
Yeah.
And then thinking, and you hit the nail on the head, it is embedded in the foundations of this country. So you have Eric Williams, Capitalism versus Slavery, and he talks about how they're hand in hand. One of the differences in talking about the chattel slavery of people of African descent in this country is how embedded it is into the society with the capitalism, and you don't really have one without the other. And so you have this group of people who are trying to maintain their position of power because they won the war to have this country. And so now, how do they maintain their power while their subjects are like, hey, you need to not do this, and we're going to take our freedom. But now you have agents of the state, i.e. police officers. Yeah. And so it's embedded in there, even though you have individuals who are like, no, I want to do good. I'm not actually racist. Like, how do you address dealing with these inherent racism while we know that there is still a covert and overt? And you said it in the anthem that you wrote with Topher, I believe. I'm still Black, and so that means something. And even with your friend, you guys were able to have a friendship where you're able to say, like, hey, you're joining this force, and so I need you to understand, I need you to act right and ethically as a human being, because if something happens to one of my fellow Black men, like, you're actually doing it to me at the same time, because we do that.
You're literally doing it to me, especially if I'm writing your referral. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm your reference, if I'm your character reference, then like that gets put on me, and whether you choose to accept that or not, like, that's a weight that I have to carry, and so I can't carry that. So do the right thing. You know what I mean? Like, and having that type of conversation, right? But now when it comes to like inherent racism or any of that stuff, it's like, how, I'm not sure of the language that people have in their homes to get their lineage to believe that other people just aren't people, that other human beings aren't humans, and that doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter what happens to them. They're animals, blah, 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 right? And it's weird because, like, so I do that song with Topher, and we did that song because of Joe Biden's ridiculous comment of, if you still got to choose between Trump and myself, then you ain't Black. And I think that just any white man that tries to say, any old white man that tries to say that you ain't Black based on a political party that you identify with is just a ridiculous sentiment, especially Joe Biden, like of all people. I'm not even going to be like non-specific, right? Specifically Joe Biden, dude's been in politics for, I don't know, 50 some odd years, and like hasn't really done anything positive for the Black community. But now all of a sudden, Black people, I want to be your president and I'm going to create change. Well, if you've been in politics for 50 plus years, where has the change been? How come you weren't trying to create change 50 years ago when you first got in? No, instead, you chose to create the crime bill that you had Bill Clinton sign that really helped boom the prison boom. Right.
The prison industrial complex.
Exactly. The prison industrial complex. Right. So you helped facilitate the foundation of that. But now all of a sudden, like, you're pro-Black and you're for Black people, but it's like, nah, my man, you told people you didn't want your kids growing up in a jungle if we got integrated together. You wanted to keep segregation happening. You know what I mean? Like, all of these things, that this is who you were. And sure, people change. I understand that. I used to be a different person than who I am now too. So I understand that people change, and maybe they have a change of heart and those types of things, right? But like, I would understand if you have a change of heart and then you're not pandering to try and get Black votes, but you're appealing to try and get Black votes. There's like a really big difference. You can openly say that you admit to your wrongs and the things that you've done before, and how as president these are the things that you'll put into play to change all of the things that you've done before, right? But that's just not the language. The language that he's using is, if you still got to choose between Trump and I, you ain't black. And it's like, bro, you don't have to carry the weight of walking outside and fearing that something's going to happen to you because you have your afro banged out. Like, you don't have that fear. You don't have the fear of just going to the store and not sure if you're going to make it back to see your kids. You don't have that fear. It's just, it's really weird with politics. That's why I say, like, I was talking at the beginning how America still segregates people. They talk about how everything is inclusive, and we have the LGBTQ QI, I don't know, QIA.
LGBTQIA.
So we have all of these organizations, we have all of these things that are in place to try and show inclusion and inclusivity. And then it's like, everything about these things shows how if you're not one of them, then you're not included in what they're doing. And apparently you need to be black to be Democrat. And if you're a black Republican, then you ain't black. And it's like, to be fair, I'm not going to say that I'm Democrat or Republican, but I'm a business owner. And as a business owner, there's a lot of conservative like things that I kind of like lean towards, you know what I mean? Just because I'm a business owner. However, liberals believe that a person should be in charge of their entire body. I believe that as well. So it's like, I'm not sure how people classify this two-party system and how like they go, it's like Democrat or death or Republican or death. And it's like, nah, man, we're humans. We're still human. Like, take your title off. And I think the thing that sucks is that a lot of people just love a title. Anytime they have a title over them, they get to exploit their title and pervert their title and do all these things in this position now that they have a title. And it's like, just be a kind human. If you can be a kind human, then the world would be a better place. Doesn't matter what title, what position you hold, like none of those things matter. The only thing that matters is when you have a human to human interaction with some random person. If you left that interaction feeling good and confident, and they left that interaction feeling good and confident, we win as a society. But if you leave that conversation feeling like this person's trying to shit on you, or you leave feeling like this person is directly offending you, or you're directly offending them, then it's like, well, dang, what kind of interactions are we having? And that's where we need to focus, is those human to human interactions. And that's what people are forgetting. Everybody wants to classify something. Oh, that's a racist situation. And because they throw the term on it, now automatically there's an automatic preconceived notion about what that type of situation is. And it's like, that's just not the case. Everything is relative. Everything, every interaction is different. And here's a prime example, right? So my wife and I are shopping at Costco yesterday, and we're walking down the aisle, and we're in Colorado Springs, which is a heavy conservative town, right? And I don't mind it. Like, I'm fine. I'm very Topher is like, and that's who is on the song "I'm Still Black." He is one of the largest voices for Black conservatives. Okay, so I'm not saying I'm either one, just because both sides really appeal. Certain parts of both sides appeal to me, and certain parts disgust me. Both sides. Okay. But we're walking in Costco, and there's this family, and it's like a mom, a dad, and they're older, and then like their son, right? And they're all older. Sons maybe early 20s. Parents are, mid 50s to late 50s, right? All of them Trump 2020 geared out. I'm talking head to toe, American flag, like the whole thing, right? And my wife and I are walking down the aisle, and they're walking down the opposite aisle. So we're crossing like this. And I got my big fro banged out. And, it's like, the thing that sucks is that people are using Trump's name to incite their racism or to evoke racism, right? Like, oh, Trump 2020, bitch, and then they say some racist stuff. Like, I don't understand. and sure, maybe he incites certain things, right? But like what does he have to do with you? Like, are you on his political campaign? Are you part of his commit? Like, so some of those things are still just kind of wild to me, right? So we're walking past the aisle or we're walking past them, and as we do that, Kristen sees something and she's just like, oh, and she makes like some really funny like little comment about ketchup, and the ketchup was, it was like, it's Costco. This is what happened. It was Costco, and it was a singular ketchup. Like,
Wasn't both?
first of all, how Costco, you supposed to be a wholesaler. How are you selling singular ketchups, right? So she makes some funny joke about that. And it was so great because as they walked past us, they looked at it, they laughed, they made a joke back with us. And that was the human to human interaction that we had. We waved, said, have a good day. They said, have a great day. And we kept it moving, right? And that type of human to human interaction is not going to be posted on social media. It's not going to be, there's no video of that going viral, like, because it doesn't incite chaos. It doesn't incite drama. There's nothing about, all it is a peaceful interaction between humans that pass each other in a grocery aisle. You know what I mean? But for me, that's like next level, because the thing that sucks is because Trump likes to incite certain things, right? And he likes using ignorance as the reason as to why it's incited. Oh, I didn't know people were yelling white power in the video that I reposted on Twitter. Like, all right, so he uses ignorance as his he just uses ignorance.
As is the scapegoat.
Yeah, exactly, as his scapegoat, right? So because of that, anytime we see people, like even people that were doing marches, right? You see the counter marchers or the counter protesters in Trump 2020 gear. You see the Trump 2020 with a guy laying on another guy with his knee on his neck, like to try and evoke the or incite, you know, hatred from what happened with George Floyd and all of these things, right? And it makes me, or it made me and Kristen feel like, dang, anytime we see somebody with Trump 2020, anytime we see somebody with Trump anything, it's like, do we need to be careful of this person? And it's really wild, right? It made me think of right now, our entire media from even from Joe Biden signing that document, giving it to Bill Clinton for him to sign, right? And the whole prison industrial complex growing, right? So it started growing, and the main reason it started growing, and the main reason why Black and brown people are filling prisons is because they criminalize being Black and brown, right? So they use the verbiage, right? And so criminalizing them. So every night on TV, on the media, all you're seeing is Black on Black crime. You're seeing Black crime. You're seeing brown crime. You're seeing all of these things that are going to create people's levels of fear to raise, you know? So now, today, that's why Black people are scared of Black people, because our entire lives, all we've seen on TV is Black terror, Black criminalization. Like, all of these things have been ingrained in our own minds. So a lot of Black people are scared of Black people. Okay, now bringing that full circle to what I'm talking about, imagine if all we saw was white criminalization. If all we saw every night was a mass shooting, serial killings, and they highlighted in such a way that now not only are Black people scared of white people, but white people are inherently going to be scared of white people because that's all they see. So when we look at how this policing stuff is happening, and we see that cops are afraid they fear for their life and all of these things, it sucks, but like, it has some sort of truth, only because the media plays as if anybody that's Black and brown is a criminal, and anybody that's Black and brown is finna attack you. And it's like, in those types of situations, now if the roles were reversed, right? So now, not necessarily the roles are reversed, but like in reality, if I see somebody wearing Trump 2020, like, obviously I have a lot of, you know, extremely right conservative friends. I have Trump supporters that are all in my network and circle, right? And so it's not against that. But how the media is portraying it is that anybody that's wearing a Trump 2020 shirt, I'm gonna feel like they're gonna attack me, they're gonna spit on me, they're gonna call me a nigger, they're gonna do anything to try and incite some sort of fear in me or to push me to the next level. Like, and it's like, dang, that sucks. But then we have this human to human interaction with people wearing that outfit, and they're, you know, full head to toe, and they're looking me in my eyes, they're smiling, they're making that joke back. And it's like, well, dang, okay, we can't believe all the things that the media is showing in terms of all these people that support Trump are just filled with hate, you know what I mean? And that Trump incites hate and all these things. Like, sure, I understand that the media just has to play a role in all of this, but it's weird to be on the side of I'm against like anarchy, right? I'm against that type of chaos. I've been to war. I understand that. I don't want war here at home. And that's where people are trying to push this, is people want a civil war. Like Dylan Roof said it when he killed the people in the church, you know, in South Carolina. Like, y'all, I'm trying to start the next civil war. We had what, in the last 2 weeks, we had 6 Black bodies taken down from being lynched. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not that I'm not aware of these things. I personally don't want it to happen because I've been at war and I understand the effects of war. And for a war to come home, like, I mean, you can ask my wife, like, I've been on edge like the last 3 weeks. You know what I mean? Like when the George Floyd situation happened, I'm like, okay, that was just kind of blatant. Like, and I think that's what shook a lot of people out of apathy, is because there's, for every other like death or murder that was caught on camera, people have been able to flip the conversation and make it seem like there was some sort of justification as to why it happened. Ahmaud Arbery shouldn't have been running. Come on, you know, like, and then people start using the whole house that he was around and all of these things, until that owner of the home came and said, no, a lot of people come, and he released footage of dozens of people going in and out of that house. You know what I mean? Like, and so people can do their best to try and justify it, and none of those were justified at all, right? And then the George Floyd happens, and now there's zero justification. So it's shaking people out of apathy. Now they have to be decently empathetic, you know what I mean? And they have to understand that this stuff is real, that there are people that are going to blatantly murder Black people because of this color of their skin, right? And then they do something ridiculous, like, I can't remember his name, Rashad Brooks, I think, maybe, in Atlanta, the Wendy's situation, which was right.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many, right? You can
There's
say
so
Breonna.
many. And the names are just endless, you know?
Right. And like, if you're going back, now we know about Elijah McClain, like, there's just so many.
Exactly. And that's here in Colorado, where I'm at, you know? That's literally an hour and a half away from me. And so the thing that sucks, right, is that, okay, we need to get on board, and we need people to recognize that this stuff is real, and we need to counter it. We need to find a way to stop it, to counter it, to stop this blatant murder against people of color, okay? So with that, I think the thing that sucks is that they try and use now the Rashard Brooks, I wish I remembered his name exactly, but there was a situation that happened at a Wendy's in Atlanta, and the crazy thing was the interaction between, like, the cops got called because the dude was sleeping in the drive-thru or something. Then cops tell him to park his car. He goes. Then they find out that maybe he's drunk, right? So they have this conversation, and okay, bottom line is that they have this conversation and it's kosher. Everything's peaceful the whole time until the cops are like, all right, we need you to blow. And dude blows into the thing, and you see it on the cop's thing, because one cop was behind him. He blows, and he blows like a 1.08 or something. Like, he was over the limit. Limit's like 0.08. He was well over the limit, right? Of alcohol intoxication. Then they say, all right, we got to arrest you. They put his hands behind his back, and now he's just like, oh, hell no. So dude starts fighting the cops. Okay. He fights the cops, takes a taser, tasers one of the cops, and then the other cop shoots him. I'm not saying it's justified, but what I will say is that if out of every single video we've seen, if anyone would have been justified, it would have been this one, because dude fought the cop. And I'm not saying he should have died, absolutely not. But like, because even as a cop, you're not, and for the record, like when I joined the military, I joined as military police. So like I had to do cop training. Like I was a police officer. I had my own cop car. I had to pull military service members over if they were speeding or doing whatever on base. I got called to different things. Like I was a cop, you know what I mean? Like in the military. So I understand the rules and regulations. That's why I can speak on it. So out of all of these things, like he is the only one that I feel the cop was warranted in being able to pull out his gun and protect himself because he feared for his life. All the other one, and now again, when you shoot, you don't shoot to kill, you shoot to disarm. That's cop training. That's not just cop training, that's military cop training, that's soldier training, that's Air Force. Anybody that has to deal with a gun, like you're not shooting because you're trying to kill the person. You're shooting to disarm them, to stop them from doing what they're doing. That's all the way across the board. So because of that, like, sure, he shouldn't have died, but was it justified that he pulled out his gun? I mean, dude fought them, 2 cops, tased 1 cop, got the cop's taser and tased the cop with his own taser. You know what I mean? So I just think personally that was the only one that was justified. However, even though I feel that was justified, Atlanta system has completely shut this dude down. They seen it as no justification to it. They've taken away his badge. All the things that they could have done to some of these other blatant cops that have blatantly killed Black and brown people, they're doing it to this one cop that maybe it was a little bit more justified for. And it's like, well, dang, the system itself is showing us that it doesn't really care about what's happening. They're trying to like, oh, we're going to make an example out of this guy. But it's like, that's the wrong guy to make an example out of. Make an example out of George Floyd's killer.
Well, there's a few things, right? So there's different versions of people's interpretations who have watched that particular on film. I'm not going to speak to that per se. What we do know is that there is also a history of white people who are fighting police, who are pointing guns at police, and there's nothing happening. So we know
not only do they not get killed, they don't even get tased.
Right. So we know. So there is blatant. Right. So there is blatant double standard here, and it is very real that there needs to be change. So here in LA, you have the defund the police to the point where the police actually have been defunded. So the budget has been cut. Thank you, Black Lives Matter, LA chapter, things of that nature. And so there are people, and you and I have talked about this before, who are using their role in the fight for freedom, in the fight for liberation, in the struggle to create change on a individual, societal, governmental level. There's all of these fronts, whether you are a healer, you're a marcher, you're a social worker, you're in the medical field, because you know that racism is in the medical field, all of this. So, and we're a little bit pressed for time. So Terry Josiah, right? Change agent, music, songwriter, veteran. What is your role? What have you been doing to help change things and actually have equality and equity, and what have you? We talked about your song with Topher. I'm still Black, but what other actions have you been doing?
So for the most part, I've been having these types of conversations, and I have these types of conversations to try and break through cultural misunderstandings. And I say that because being just being, a combat veteran, having served in the military, and people love saying, oh, veterans, you guys have like a voice. So cool, I'm going to use my voice, right? And then obviously just doing music, I have a decent platform. So I use my platform to try and break down the misunderstandings that some people have versus other people, right? So, and again, we can kind of, everybody can talk about their perception of the Rashad Brooks things, right? And everybody can talk about their perception of all of these situations, but the bottom line is it comes down to human interaction. Again, you know, we can talk about the inherent racism that we deal with at home, or that we're taught at home, and all of those things, but how you handle yourself in front of a human being it shows what your character actually is. And so for me, just having these conversations, and like I try and have these conversations with people that are in decent levels of power. I try and have it with people that have influence, right? So we had this conversation with through our platform, Break the Silence Against Domestic Violence. And on that platform, we had a sheriff. And I didn't know who the sheriff was or what his role was or anything. I just knew he was a sheriff. So because I recognized him being a sheriff, I'm like, all right, awesome. Like, let's talk and let's be real, right? So he was real and just open and listening to everything. And it was beautiful. I was the only Black male, and there was 3 Black women that were on there as well that were talking. And it was really beautiful and powerful, because I have my perspective as a Black male, and Black women go through just crazy amounts of stuff as well, you know? And so they were able to share theirs. But what was really great and awesome was that, you know, he kind of slipped up and was just like talking about he didn't slip up, he said it on purpose, but like I saw it as a slip because I was able to challenge him. So he said something like, you know, I chose to be a police officer, and I understood the hardships that come with that. That's why they get hazardous pay, all of those things, right? And I said, well, good, I need you to stop right there. I said, you saying that you chose to be a police officer automatically nullifies the entire, like when somebody says Black Lives Matter, there's counters, right? So people want to counter somebody saying Black Lives Matter, which is just weird. But I recognize why they want to counter it. The reason why people want to counter Black Lives Matter is because it's an actual organization. And because it's an organization, and this organization is politically implicated on the left, meaning liberal, right? Because there's these political implications, anybody that identifies with being a conservative or on the right side cannot agree with Black Lives Matter, because the movement, the political implications behind it are its liberal left. And so if you're right conservative, you automatically need to shut that down, because you can't agree with that, because you're a conservative, right? And so that's why a lot of people have been countering it. Okay, so now that we have that understood, now we have to recognize why they're countering it and the purpose of it, right? So me, and to counter their counter. So anybody that says Blue Lives Matter, that's like just one of the most ridiculous statements, because it's like, well, and this is where I was able to challenge Orvis, who's the sheriff. So Orvis said that, and I was just like, well, Orvis, thank you for saying that, because you're saying directly that you chose to be a police officer. You chose. It was something that you decided to do. And because you chose to do that, you get hazardous pay. You get some of these things that are afforded you because you chose to be a police officer. You get battle rattle gear. You get bulletproof vests. You get guns. All of those things. I was like, but here's the thing. It's not just white people that are cops. There's Black people, Asian people, Mexican people, all sorts of people that are cops. So to say Blue Lives Matter is not saying that it's the person that matters. It's saying that the job matters. And to say that the job matters.
Yeah, I'm gonna, just because we're a little, so it's going from an occupation into like the human.
Yeah,
life.
and there's just no comparison. And he recognized that in that conversation, and because of that conversation, he has invited me to Ohio to help educate all the sheriffs that go to him for training once a year, the deputies and the FBI agents that go to him once a year. And he's asked me to kind of be a part of that conversation in leading a new form of education in diversity. So
in terms of going, and that's great that now you've been invited and you have the military police training with that. What is your goal with that?
is to get people to see that it's the human to human interaction. And if we can recognize that not every Black person is dangerous, not every Black person is a criminal, not every white person is a racist, not every white person is trying to kill a Black person or a brown person, then maybe we can get to a place of decent human to human interaction. That's kind of my goal, is to stop seeing these traumatic videos that we're so accustomed to seeing, is to start seeing better things. And not to say that we need to hide those things and cover it up with beauty, right? Like, no, like, we need to stop this stuff, to highlight it, to showcase its ugliness so that we can end it, so that we can really put an end to systemic oppression, systemic racism, and recognize that it's humans that are just real people. And if we recognize that, and here's the thing, this kind of like defunks even the people that think that Black and brown people aren't humans, right? In the Bible, in Proverbs, it says a righteous man still treats his animal with respect. So if we're considered animals in their eyes, like, if you choose to be a righteous man, you would still have respect for the beings that are around you. And that's just like to me, there's always a counter to somebody saying something stupid like, well, you guys are only 3/5 human, or you know what I mean? Like, whatever nonsense they choose to believe in. So, I mean, all we can do is try our best to have good conversations, try our best to educate our kids, try our best to do these things so that when we have an interaction with somebody, even if they are racist, even if they do have bad intentions, there might be some form of influence that we can have because of a message that we share with them, versus automatically deeming them racist and all sorts of things, and then that conflict ends in somebody dying. You know, like, if we can stop having people die from that, that's good.
Like, I understand the analogy that you're giving, even with the Proverbs, but I'm not gonna push back, but I am going to make sure that it's known in terms of, because we see those who treat, you know, animals with more respect than our humanness and things of that nature, and fundamentally and just flatly, it's just wrong. And so I think it's great that you are able to go. I hope you do get to go to Ohio and continue to have these conversations. I also think that, you know, continuing to do the music and the songwriting, and be proud of being Black on there. Natural We has a position that there are multiple fronts to this war. There's a war on Black people, and you are working in your avenue in terms of being you're confronting and having these conversations not only with fellow Black people, but with white people and people of Latino descent, Asian descent, as well, as we know that there are others who are just like, I'm just gonna talk to our people and talk about it from a cultural perspective, and encourage people to empower themselves and to learn and so on and so forth. So we thank you, and thank you for what you're doing. It's great, and I thank you for this conversation. It's been great. We were a little bit over our time, but it was needed, and we appreciate you, Terry Josiah. Thank you so much. But once again, you know, for everyone who is listening and on, we naturally encourage you, find your role, find your area. If writing songs that speaks truth to power is it, do that. If you are a doctor and you are fighting the systemic racism in the medical field, do that. If you are educating our children, please continue to do that. And it's not just to try, but we're going to continue to do it, and we're going to do it and do it as we continue to empower and heal ourselves, because, you know, we're going to continue to be more than well. So thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. We appreciate it. Once again, Terry Josiah, thank you. It's good to see you as always. And we will be back next week. Our Associate Director, Timothy Bryant, will be hosting the Community Hour of Power next week, and stay tuned for updates. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Bye.
Bye.